Next week, Monday, we have Tech in Asia. Terrence Lee is the editor-in-chief up there. What's really interesting about Tech in Asia is that they have had a whole decade of operations in which they've never actually broken even until earlier this year. They were profitable in January. We wrote a piece on them, and then COVID happened. And so now we're checking in on them to see how they're going. So that's on Monday at 4 p.m. Singapore time. We also have a masterclass session by Hendrik Keith Hansen, who's the media advisor at IMS. He ran a really solid workshop last year at Splice Beta, which was really well attended, and a lot of people asked for more. So he's coming back online this time to help you out with getting your management fundamentals right. If you are starting up and you need to really think through about what is your mission, what is your strategy, and how to go about building out a company, this is the workshop for you.
Shirley's saying it was sold out. It really was. This guy packed a little room in Chiang Mai with tons of folks from all around the world. It was literally our first ever session.
That's right.
And it was so wonderful to have him.
He's
a lovely guy.
That's right.
He has immense
Very
compassion.
kind.
Yeah,
kind,
exactly.
Kind
really lovely. Listen, here we are with our main act of the day. I'm so excited.
This is really exciting. Our youngest speaker, I should say, at Splice Beta. Very, very, very honored to have. I know, like Rishad and I have been waiting for this moment because Nandar, we are big fans. We love the work that you're doing in Myanmar. We first came across you in a new Naratif article earlier this year, and having read that, we were like, how come we don't know her? We need to get to know her. And here we are. This is our excuse of inviting you here just so we get to know you. Podcasting is, by the way, a huge topic at Splice Beta. You'll see a number of podcasters in session here with us right now, just because they all love podcasting and they also want to get to know you. So Nandar, we love your work. Let's hear more about it. Over to you.
The reason we do this is because we're fans. We're such big fans of you. So excited you could be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I also want to take a chance before I begin to really thank Splice Media for publishing that article and for inspiring so many people to better the community. So many people who read that article reach out to me saying like, thank you for inspiring. Thank you for doing what you're doing. So I am really happy to see that happening. And it wouldn't be possible to reach out to a larger, different community without your help. So that's first thing. And another thing is, thank you for having me here today. I'm very excited and also slightly nervous because I've never shared my screen with other people. So
you're a podcaster after all. That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
And by the way, the article that we're speaking about, just in case people want to know where to find it,
Shirley just popped it in.
The problem is that server is currently down. We'd like to think it's because everyone is hitting that article right now, and so it's gone down. But no, that's not true. Anyway, it probably doesn't work. The server is having some issues, so check that another day. But sorry to
we will fix it.
Back to you.
Okay, then should I start sharing my screen?
Yes, please do. Go for it.
So, hello everyone. It's lovely to be here with all of you guys. Thank you for giving time to be here with me and with Splice Beta. So, as you all know, I'm Nanda. I'm from Myanmar. So I'll give a little bit background of me so that everyone knows who am I and why am I speaking the kind of topic that I'm given to speak. So I'm going to kind of divide my talk into three categories. One where I will explain who am I, what I do, and where I began. And the second part would be like about the podcast, like why did I start at this podcast in the country where very minimum people listen to podcasts. And the third part would be the challenges and opportunity for starting the podcast and being a young feminist in this country. And the last section would be what motivates me to be the person that I am, what motivates me to be the feminist that I am today. So let's start with the who am I part. I am a feminist activist. And don't be confused by a lot of the branding thing here. It's just the logos of things that I've done to give a visual image of what I've done. So I grew up in a very small village in northern Chan State, where I was trained to be a very traditional thinker. Both of my parents were um, farmers, so they have a very simple life, a traditional life, where they expect me to do the household chores and run you know run around the culture norm. So I was okay with that up until I was 14 years, when a tragic came to me. My father passed away, and I think there was a turning point in my life where I started questioning with questioning culture. And it might be confusing when I said that my father passed away and I started questioning, but to give a little bit background of why my father passed away, my father had a disease called epiphylis. That's I don't know the correct pronunciation. So he usually has seizure like twice in a year or something like that. So that one time when he was having seizure, my mother was on period. So I saw my father about to collapse, and I asked my mother, saying that my father is about to collapse. He has a seizure. My mother ran away and said, "I can't touch your father. I'm on period. I'll ask for neighbors' help. You do something." And I was a 14 years old child. I didn't know what to do. I was except to panic and to cry. And that was the last time I saw my father. My father collapsed, and he hit his head with something in with the table beside him. And yeah, so that was the, I think sort of it was a wake up call for me in a way that um, um, that made me to started to realize that I'm trained to believe something that's deeply wrong, and I'm not trained to question it or be critical about it. So my activism quite really started with my family. I was trying to be rebellious by making my mother uncomfortable to do what she did, for doing what she did. And that's where it began. So fast forward, I will just give a lot of part where I started kind of learning about feminism and knowing about my rights. And that's where like I kind of develop a sense of self and develop a sense of kind of new passion, and new goals came to me. I was not like when I was 14 years old, where I only think about getting married, having children, and pleasing the husband. One day my life would be there. So I have stopped all those things after that time. And the biggest professional turning point for me would be in 2017, when I translated Why We Should All Be Feminists by Chimamanda Ngozi into Myanmar language. Translating that book and publishing it, um, I think it sort of gave me the idea of the kind of world that I want to build in and how I want to build. So translating this book really kind of was a way of trying to reach out to more people and try to educate myself meanwhile, and to know my capacity on what I am capable of doing and what I am not. So after that book was published, I was taken as a serious activist. I should say I had the credential to speak up, and my voice was starting to be heard in the community, not just in my family or among my friends anymore. It became larger than that. And so after first year of publishing my book, we started this vagina monologue with a group of friends, saying that this needs to be out. We need to let people know that this is the biggest issue in this country. So in 2018, with other friends from UK and US and Boston, we started this group to begin the vagina monologue dialogue in Myanmar. Uh, and we did it for 3 years now, and we have received a massive support from all over Myanmar, even though there are, of course, large part of them were really angry and not happy with what we did. But there were few people who were starting to question it and think about these women bodies issues critically, and started to be aware of those things, and started to stop doing misogynist thing or stereotypical point of view behavior, so from that vagina monologue in 2018, in the middle of the vagina monologue, I started Purple Feminist Group, aiming to have an organization or a structure in order to dismantle patriarchy. And it was not easy because I started it by myself, so I pretty much didn't have any person to really kind of run through my idea, or really uh, help me shape this understanding on how I can build an organization or grow my organization. So it was difficult, but I started it anyway. So I founded the Purple Feminist Group, which mainly does four things. Well, we have four mission, which is to promote feminist literature and to challenge menstrual taboo and to amplify women and girls' voices, which is the podcast that I first started in 2019 in August. And fifth is to promote gender-based violence, to promote awareness on gender-based violence. So these are the four main mission Purple Feminist Group is doing right now in Myanmar, and we are actually the second feminist organization after Ray for Feminist organization. So it's pretty much a very still a taboo thing to say the word feminist, although there have been a massive discussion around it. There's still this ugly negative connotation going on around it. And lastly, right now I started a podcast called Feminist Talk with Nanda, which is like basically to personally rant about my daily struggle as a feminist, professionally, personally, psychologically. So this space right now, I just finished. I started a couple of months ago. So now we launched 3 episodes already on love, woman body, and media. So that's what I'm doing overall right now. So we are moving on to podcast. In 2019, I decided to do podcast, and a lot of people were very disappointed, or at least sad, that I think of that solution when I was thinking of reaching out to more people. For me, I was trying to think of out of the box, even though I know that there is no built-in audience already to listen to my podcast. I wanted to educate my people that there is this incredible platform that all people all over the world are using, and we are not making the use of it, and we need to. And the best way to do it is to provide local resources, something similar to that, so that they can explore for more in the future when they have other topic that they are interested in. So I think when in terms of my activism, I am also I tend to be a little bit non-traditional in a way, because I want to. I think part of being a feminist is to challenge this traditional thinking, um, which also include approaching challenging the traditional approaches to solutions. So I started podcast, which is like to do that, but also I was having less and less time to really sit down and write, or to really go and give trainings. When you go around the villages and give training, like let's say you give a training for 5 days, only 3 or 4 people out of 10 or 15 people would think differently or will become different person. And I feel like that's so time consuming. Yes, it's great to do the traditional way, and it has own slow process of development, but I think meanwhile there are other options that are open, and but we're not making use of it. So I started it, and knowing in my head that there will be like at least 10, only 10 people who will be listening, and all those 10 people are the people who know me so well, and who are kind of in a way forced to listen to me. So so I started it anyway. So people ask me, how did you start? This seems so difficult and stuff. And I think for me as well, when I think of starting it, I spend like, I think for 5 to 6 months just by thinking whether or not I should do it, or like, if I really is it's gonna be useful or not for the community that I'm aiming for. Because for me, I think whenever I think of approaching to a solution, an issue, I turn to uh, think my people in my village as an audience. So if something I'm doing is not going to positively affect to the people in my village, or it's something that my people in my village cannot understand, I take a step back and make it as simpler as possible. So rather than going on Anchor, the first thing that I did was SoundCloud. That's where most Myanmar artists also explore. Right now, we have another application called Juice, and that's been trendy right now. But it used to be SoundCloud used to be a lot more. I don't know, sort of like stable thing where people can easily get access to it. So I started it there. So what I want to try to say is what I was trying to say is that I spend a majority of the time just thinking, and I think I came to a point there where I said, okay, fuck it, I'm not gonna think anymore. I'm just gonna start it. It's gonna be messy, it's gonna be imperfect, but I'm gonna have to start it. So as soon as I decided that I would do the podcast, I started pitching my ideas to every people I meet, whether it's my best friend, or it's my colleague, or it's my like vagina monologue co-directors. Anywhere I go, I started telling people that I'm starting a podcast. And mind you that I haven't even started the podcast, and I have zero money to start it. So I was part of me was like unsure, but also another part of me was like pushing me to just go and do it. Just the more you say it, the more you will feel obligated to do it. So sort of like uh, it was a push from the inside for me to do it. So I started pitching ideas with people, and I was lucky that I got to meet some amazing people who support me to do that by some giving some um, crowdfunding ideas, and some people giving me equipment ideas, some people giving me their own money to start this and do it. And another incredibly funny thing is that I never ever have run any kind of podcast in my entire life, and I don't even know how people run a podcast. I have recorded a few videos in the past, just to rant about my struggle being a woman in Myanmar. And I know how to take a video, but because I feel like it's way simpler than audio. It doesn't need a lot of like technology thing. But I think I was wrong. Audio could be as easy as video as well. So I didn't know how to do those things at all. So what I did was first listening to podcasts where they talk about how to build a podcast, and this like watching a lot of YouTube videos and Skillshare, and listening to like podcasts on Anchor. And that's where I slowly build the skills to build the skills, and also confident to do it. This is all very psychological process. It's like a very first phase, intellectually building myself, psychologically building myself. And it was very difficult because I've been pitching ideas to people for like 4 months now, and I have got the resources and I've got everything, but I couldn't produce the podcast yet. And mainly it's because I was the only one who is doing everything from crowdfunding to writing proposal to reaching out to people, and like doing all the thing from bottom to up. And it was so exhausting. But I was impatient to some point. I was like, fuck it. I think I shouldn't take interview anymore. Sometimes like I would be puzzled by my own struggle inside. But then I realized now is that I was patient enough to wait 4 months until I first produced my first episode. It was a very long, slow process of building a podcast for me. Especially, I'll talk about it in next slide. Especially because there's no example in Myanmar. So this is where I was talking about how I really did it was like, first of all, I sit down and do research about, how to build a podcast, and if Myanmar has any Myanmar Burmese podcast that I could listen to and learn from, and or also collaborate. So I reach out to people to talk about the ideas if they want to be a partner in this, because I don't know how to do it. So I was practically reaching out to every people that I could. And I was asking people advice, as I said, if they can support me on this, I don't know, by giving technical support or by money or anything, it could be useful. And I was also reaching out for a bunch of people who know the funding sources to do this kind of work, because I think at the end of the day, even though a podcast could be started without money, there are certain things that I have to do for self-sufficiency. So I need funding to go on, because I was doing this thing as full-time job, and it was difficult not to earn money or have money to do it. So and there were people who were willing to give money and equipment or their services. And I after all, after long struggle, I managed to have basic equipment, recorder, and um, very basic. I think I only the most expensive thing I owned for 1 year was the recorder. It was the only thing that I could you make the most use out of the whole thing we bought, and of course the laptop um, uh, that could maintain for the editing process. So these were the only two things that I invested the large amount of money, and the rest were pretty much very easy and freely available, such as Audacity. That's an audio editing um, software you can use. And okay, the last part is about, yes, I have already built um, all these things as a foundation to start a podcast, and I've gone to multiple places to collect the stories of women and girls around Myanmar. But what now that I already finished editing, and like this is like now I put it on the website or SoundCloud, but it was difficult to make people listen because not a lot of people in Myanmar know what podcast is. So it was so the most challenging part I would say was um, uh, not having people know how to listen to podcasts. So I had to invest majority of my time to like every time I meet people after the podcast is released, I tell them, I take their phone and show them how to use it and where can they listen, and all these baby steps that I had to teach him. And later on, I kind of gave my friends responsibility to do those things for me in a way, like becoming the ambassador um, of G-Taw Zagar Wyne podcast. These were all the basic major thing that I had to do before I really like produced it and started. And so this is how I interview people, just to give a sneak peek of how I do interview. I don't really sit down in a studio and ask people to come to me. I go around to the villages and town and people who are doing like women who are doing work, and meet them and ask them about their stories and why they do what they do. And I think while doing that, I cannot believe how many mistakes and imperfection that I have committed, because it was so. I was a immature recorder. I didn't know a lot about recording and stuff, because even in school when they teach you about how to take a video and stuff, most of the time I was in front of the camera, not behind the camera. So this was another challenging part of it, because now I'm in behind the scene. I need to record it. I need to develop the question. I need to know about the person that I'm reaching out. And it was not easy, but I had so much fun and inspiration doing it, because these women, all these amazing women and girls that I met, have inspired me to keep doing it. It's like they are just a motivational pill for me to keep doing it and keep making me think that this is a good thing and I'm doing it for a good cause. So what I learned is not try to be perfect. I let go of the idea of perfection, or I let go of the idea of that I need to be I need to have all the sources that is mentioned in a website or in a YouTube or this and that. I just do it in my own way, and it was in a way easier because there was no other feminist podcast in Myanmar that people could compare me with to make me feel less perfect. So that was a good part of it, I would say. And now we're gonna talk about the fun part. I think being a feminist and running a podcast has a significant differences from being a normal person talking about different things. When I say normal person, I mean someone who is not gender aware or who is not doing the feminist cost. So it was a different journey and difficult journey for me in a different level, because there are two part to it. The producing podcast one was, like I said earlier, it was challenging because we didn't have any local example that I could look up to or feel inspired to, or ask advice from, to give me instruction or guideline to how to run a feminist podcast. But at the same time, I think that challenge also lies an opportunity in that challenge, because that challenges sort of give me the ownership to do however I like to do it. And second thing was lack of expertise. As I told you guys before, I didn't have any expertise, and it was sort of a challenge because I need to start from the bottom. I need to study it and learn it and invest my time to actually understand how to run a podcast before I do it. So it was time consuming, of course. And the third part was the major part. I would say that I am also still trying to um, make it better, which is not having a built-in audience for podcasts. Myanmar is not a podcast fan. But now the good part is that we have, I think, 5 to 6 podcasts starting in Myanmar, all by young people talking about different issues. And I think now more and more people are engaged with the word podcast, and they are interested in getting to know about those, what is podcast and about those topics. That is the part of being in the, like, starting the podcast. But another part of like being a feminist, doing all these things aside from the podcast, is that I think in Myanmar we don't have a system to support feminists or activists, to secure them. Like, for example, if you're someone, a journalist writing about politics in Myanmar, and if you're going against to a certain group or a government, your life is on at risk. You can be killed or stabbed or um, threatened anytime, and in so many ways. So I think part of me, since the beginning of the vagina, doing the vagina monologue, I've always felt that part of me felt that every time I go out, and if people are staring at me more than 30 seconds, I started to feel very um, mentally uncomfortable, that I feel like my physical reaction started to, like, I feel like I want to get out of the place, or I want to go run away, that sort of thing. I think this is some sort of physical insecurity that I have to go through as well, that I worry that something might happen to me or even my family, because of my activism. A lot of people in my village do not used to like me a lot. They didn't like me most part of what I do. And because I think that the job that I'm doing is something, it's the job to make people uncomfortable from doing the stereotypical thing of being conformed to those um, um, taboos. So because I challenge those things that are so close to their heart, and that it's something that's been there for so long, it's so very hard for them to even listen to that kind of conversation that I am trying to have. So I think that's why being a feminist has challenged me in so many level to always be careful when I'm going around. And my life is, I think, in a way, it's threat. And another thing, that my life is, my security is threat. It's not only online, actually offline as well. It's both way, like people would comment you or text you saying a lot of incredibly nasty thing that they wouldn't necessarily say it to you in your face. I think because of this social media thing, people are misusing it in so many ways, and I find it very disturbing and sad to see that. And I think the another thing, that's underlying thing, that most people who are activists struggling to face is the daily sexism and misogyny everywhere. Even though you are fixing the thing and you are trying to better the community, educate people on feminism and human rights and equal rights, there are so many people around the country that do not want to accept it in any way, and they just keep promoting these sexist ideologies and misogynist behavior. And that makes me really sad to witness it and see it every day, because I think whenever we see a misogynist comment or behavior, it makes us sad, or in a way that it demotivates us. It's like, oh my god, I'm trying so fucking hard to fix this and to fix this system, to dismantle this patriarchal system, and still these people still exist, and I don't know if they will ever go away. And to kind of summarize all these challenges, I would say all these challenges, of course, also lies opportunity. In all these challenges also lie opportunity, and I try to be I try to find them and to see that as an opportunity for myself to build and to be better, to be more aware of what I do and how I do it. And but I think it's so interesting, even for myself personally, to see my psychological stage and health being challenged in a very crazy way compared to the life that I had before being a sort of like a activist figure in this country. Because I remember, because I'm doing like this taboo issue, right, like menstruation and vagina monologue, abortion. And I remember before we did a production, production shoot for the abortion video. It was one day before that, and I remember I was sleeping and I wake up 3 times feeling panic attack. And why did I feel panic attack? It's because that I was thinking all the possible way that after producing this video, my life would be in so much danger in another level, because this topic is a criminalized topic. It's written in the law that we are not supposed to encourage it, or we are not supposed to make it legal, but for me, I'm giving the aspect to this conversation, saying that it can be legal and that it should be legal, and it's dangerous to say that in this country. So I think my mental health is quite challenged by being an activist overall. And I am being more aware and trying to relax and rest well, and just find the time to not do this all the time, so that I can also keep surviving and keep being productive in my professional life. What motivates me? I think I would say underlying point is that um, I became a feminist because of the unjust world around me, right? If the world was a just place, I wouldn't need to be a feminist. So I think as long as the injustice exists, I would have to be a feminist. So I think I would say that this is because I keep doing these things because I want to see a just world, an equal way, an equal world where I don't have to be shrinking myself because I'm a woman. I don't have to see my brothers from doing violence thing or saying shitty things because he's a man. So I want to see a world where humans are criticized for being for their bad behavior and for their ugly things that they do, not because of the gender and sexual orientation that they have. And I think that's the That's the thing that motivates me every morning. I wake up, and even though I know that I would be challenged and I would be questioned by the whole society that do not want me to talk about this, but part of me always says that step by step, I will reach there, or at least I will make this conversation broader than it used to be when I didn't know it. So for me, my ultimate goal is that to make people understand that gender discrimination can end if we all participate in ending it. Um, yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you very much, you all, for listening and giving your attention.
Wow, Nandar, this is amazing. Thank you so much. If you'd like to stop presenting so we can see your face instead, that would be fantastic. I'm going to begin with that first.
I think we might have lost her video.
Oh, did we lose her completely?
Oh, I hope not. Nanda, are you still there?
If you're still there.
Well, okay. Nanda, I hope you're there, because you should see some of the messages that are going into the chat box right now.
I know, and I have so many questions for you. Oh,
here
there you are.
Okay, you're back.
Can you hear us? We can't hear you.
We can
Wait,
see you, but
can I quickly ask if you hear what I said at the end as well?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Tell us again.
Yeah, you might have to say it again. But we
No.
watched
Actually,
the entire
my question
presentation.
was lost. I'm so sorry. What was the last thing that you heard?
Oh, we went all the way to the end of your slides, and then
okay.
So I think we saw the whole thing.
I was panicking. I was so panicking.
Don't worry. Don't panic.
I was like, am I speaking alone? Yes.
Can I please say what's on everyone's mind, everybody in the chat box? This is recorded. We heard every single word. We hung on to it, and we're so inspired. I cannot even tell you that, I think about this. If I may ask, you've got a ton of questions in there, but because we're the organizers, we can ask the first question.
That's right.
Nandar, thank you so much for that. That was incredible. And I think to myself, that second last slide that you had, if things were okay, I wouldn't need to be a feminist, and if there wasn't any gender discrimination, I wouldn't need to do all of this. I mean, I wish I had that clarity when I was 25, when I was 22, when you started all of this. When you were 14, when you started your journey, arguably, with that story about your parents. I'm going to ask one question that I have to ask, and then I promise you we will get to everybody's questions. But the first thing I really, Alan and I talk about this all the time. And the thing that we want to ask you is how, as a man and as men, we feel like we're feminists or allies or whatever it is you'd like to call us. How can we be more responsible feminists? What would you advise us to be more sensitive?
Yeah, I think it's a very important question to ask as a man in the journey of this building feminist movement around the world. And more men are taking interest in being a feminist in Myanmar as well. This is my lived experience. A lot of people, men, particularly boys, came up to me and asked, like, how can I be a feminist? How can I be a better feminist? And I say to them that the underlying thing men should be ready to give up is their privileges that comes with patriarchal system. You need to question that. If you're comfortable with your privilege, it's gonna be very difficult to be a feminist. You need to be ready to let go of that privileges that comes with being a man. So I would say that's the first step, or the important step you should take, and always supporting other women, in you are running a media company, so make sure that when you're hiring people or working with people, there's always like gender balance, or you're inviting women. Like what you're doing right now is incredible.
Well, well, thank you. We're just trying to do what we can, I guess. Sorry, I've been just so captivated by all the applause in the chat box, and I
Oh,
really hope
sorry,
that
I'm
you
not
take a moment
looking
to
at
see it
it.
as well.
Okay.
No, you should, because you have a lot of people who are saying they're almost tearing over because of the story that you just told. I think
Thank you
that's
all.
just amazing. Pooja Pandey from Hernikata.
Khabar Lahariya.
Kabar Lahiri. You and I make the mistake sometimes. Well, she just left, but she left a question here for you. Hi, Nanda. So inspiring. A question on branding. Do you feel like claiming your feminist identity overtly? In other words, putting it out in the title of your podcast makes it less accessible or more accessible for people?
That's very interesting. I used to never worry about it until one day when I started this Purple Feminist organization, and my own uncle, actually, he should watch this talk. He came up to me and said, like, why are you putting feminist in your organization name? People will be taken aback. And I know it comes from a good heart that he wants me to grow this organization and collaborate with people and stuff, but he worries that in Myanmar context people will be taken aback and I would not have partners to work with and stuff like that. And and because of his opinion on that, I started to be concerned a little bit about it. But I think from the beginning till now, overall, I would really say people would not like me, or people would not want to collaborate me because I'm a feminist. And if that's the case, that's their loss, bro. Like it's their loss. They will not get to meet this amazing feminist and know about feminism. So I think when we are creating something, we shouldn't really worry about what other people would think as the main thing. It should be something that what I think, do I think this is a quality product that I'm giving to people? And if the answer is yes, we should produce it anyway. And if people don't like it, we will be with the people who will like it. So the people who don't like it will leave the room. So I think let's just think it that way.
I love that. The more I listen to you and the more I see the comments in the chat box, you go far. You transcend feminism. You transcend any kind of discrimination. You're so hugely inspiring. Thank you. Listen, I'd like people to. Florence, you have a great question as always. Florence is asking about impact on your peers and feminists. But please, Florence, unmute yourself and ask your question. I think you'd ask it much better than I do.
Thanks, Rashad and Alan. Hi, Nandar.
Hi.
This is beyond inspiring, I would say, how you become. And I love the books that you're reading, and I think it takes great courage to act on that and call yourself a feminist, taking off from your experience. I think we've all here seen the impact it has on you, on your choices, where you want to focus on with your subject and the medium you've chosen, which is podcast. But I know maybe this is a short while for you to observe what's happening out there, but what do you think has been the impact for young feminists, young women, your peers, your friends out there with this movement that you have created? That's my question. Thank you.
Yeah, I, I want to believe that my different mediums are impacting different kind of audience who don't get access to all of those things. Like for example, sometimes I do videos, and those people who likes to watch video can access to that and be educated on that. But I also have people who are not on social media, who are not active on social media, and for those I'd like to believe that my books are a good tool for them to learn about feminism, or at least to start thinking about feminism. And with the podcast thing, I would like to, I think for me, doing a podcast was in a way also kind of trying to protect the security of the speakers as well, in a way, to some extent, I would say. And that's why I try to use like different tools to approach different people. For example, I provide trainings and webinar like this to many people in Myanmar. I go to universities and colleges and high schools, and where I talk about feminism, sometimes with 10 people and very intimate. Sometimes I would talk to 100 of people about feminism. So I I try not to limit myself when I'm educating, or at least sharing my feminist journey with other people, because I feel like even for me, when I was younger, I didn't get access to internet or social media because I was from a village and the internet sucks. And but the first step that I learned about feminism, or way of thinking about feminism, was someone who came to our village and gave the training. It made me start to think and to learn more about it. So yeah, I like exploring different methods while approaching people on feminism. I don't know if I answer your question, Florence.
Yes,
That's
yes, you did.
lovely.
Thank you. But I have one more question. Right.
Go for it, Florence. All yours.
Okay. So, all these time, have you ever received any? How do you deal with non-believers? And have you ever received any intimidation, harassment in your work? And how do you deal with that?
Oh, I would say that I think because I became a feminist after some sort of credential behind me, I was never questioned too hard regarding feminism. Sort of like, I think in a way, I don't like to take credit. It's like being the young pioneer for feminism in a way. So it was easy for me to convince people, or at least take ownership on talking about it, because my feminism is through storytelling. It's never accusation, or like making them uncomfortable with their story. It start with my, and how I face discrimination, or I am oppressed, or my rights are taken away. So because of that reason, I have very, very minimum threats, but I do have a lot of threats online. There are so many people who are behind a screen that do not dare to say anything in front of me. So they usually write to me and comment nasty thing, or most of them, I would say, comes with passive aggressive comment. Yeah. So what I do is, like, a great feminist once said on a podcast that never read comment. If you read comment, you will want to stop producing anything. So I take her advice.
Nandar, you should definitely read the comments in this chat box, however.
Okay.
Trust me, if we need you to be doing your podcast regularly, we need you to be writing, we need your voice. Seriously, we need your voice in many, many places. Related to that last question that Florence asked, also is a question that Raven, who is also a podcaster, asked. Raven, please unmute yourself. Are you still here? I loved your question about the interviewees receiving negative feedback. Raven, go for it. I know you're not muted, but we can't hear you. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question for you, if that's okay.
It's on.
Raven,
Here
there
she
you
goes.
are.
Yay.
Wonderful.
Oh, we're not hearing you.
We're not hearing you again.
We can see you, but we can't hear you.
Thank you for coming, Jaya. Yeah, why we can't hear your sound, Raven? Nope. Still no sound. Would you be okay if I asked your question? I can't hear you.
Maybe we'll just ask your question on your behalf then. Thank you.
Yeah, no, so what, that's okay, Raven, try and fix your sound. We want to hear from you. So Raven said that since your podcast discusses taboo topics, have your interviewees received any negative feedback or backlash from the public? Nanda, how do they mentally prepare themselves before the episode is released?
Yeah, so this is where I think storytelling is a very powerful tool to use again, because usually I don't, even though I'm speaking with some expertise, I never really talk about something that could kind of provoke people in a very aggressive way. I talk about feminist issue from through personal storytelling. That way nobody can accuse each other about who is wrong and who is right, and I think nobody is right and wrong. It's we grew up differently so that we experience the world differently. So I think so far, because I all the questions that I've asked to the speakers are like you guys just listen from me. It's similar to this. It's like they tell their stories about how they experience thing and how they cope with it and how they did it, stuff like that. So because I think because I use the storytelling format, it's pretty easy. This only the abortion topic was a little bit expertise and knowledge based thing, and it was not received very hardly. Actually, I thought a lot of people would hate me because I started that conversation, but I haven't heard any nasty comment yet so far. So for the speaker, as far as I'm concerned, for till now we haven't experienced anyone being criticized or being questioned. A lot of people are feeling so inspired that the speaker, they now got to know the story behind the speaker, why they did what they did and stuff like that.
Nandar, thank you. Thanks for that answer. Listen, we're already 3 minutes over, but we don't feel like stopping this just yet. Janicia, if you don't mind, I may call on you in 1 second, because we can't wait to hear from you. The reason I'm saying this about Janicia is that, she's a dear friend. We go back a very long way, and she's a great mother, and she has 2 daughters and a son. And Alan is a dear friend, and he's a great father, and he has a daughter and a son. And I'm curious about you guys. I'm not a parent, but I'm curious about how do you make your children feminists? Nandar, please feel free to jump in. But Janicia, tell us, how do you do this?
It just happens because they just watch you, and it's just and it's not just your male children becoming feminists. I mean, I've noticed that my kids have great knowledge about the gender spectrum. We've had all sorts of genders in our house. We are surrounded. We're very privileged in that respect to be surrounded by people like you, Rishad, and our circles, where all of and I come from my community, the Eastern community in Bombay. They are notoriously known to be quite feminist. Like, our men cook, our women work. These are things that are not acceptable for a lot of people. So yeah, I mean, it just happened. We're lucky. I didn't have to work too hard.
Yeah, and can I also just jump in and say that I think sometimes it's very sad. No matter how feminist your family is, there's this outside world,
Yes.
that will challenge them and make them think that there's something wrong with your family, or what your family is doing is not the way it used to be, or it's an uncultured way, or whatever that is. And that's there, and it's never a complete phase of like, oh, they are going to be like, I think parents are not fully responsible to make the kids feminist. Yes, their parenting should be a feminist parenting approach, but at the end of the day, it's the children that have to really be critical about the outside world and inside world, and they have to understand that there's, even though their family is equal and like feminist, there's this outside world, it's unequal, so that they can be aware that when a woman is speaking about injustice thing, if you're raised from a feminist house, you're like, oh no. I face a lot of people in Myanmar, especially coming from a um, middle class or upper middle class, in a school compound. If I'm sitting down and arguing about feminism, and they would like, oh no, my parents, both of them work. Yeah, damn, you're living in the big city and both of your parents have
Yes.
degrees and stuff. And yes, I'm not denying that there's no equality at all in the world. There are some family who are practicing it, but the world as a large part of it, it's still an unjust world, and we need to fix it together. Even the privileged one have to particularly participate to do end this, you know.
And I just want to say one thing that we're seeing in India right now, especially if you're watching the news. And there was a suicide of a film star, and right now the media is going after his ex-girlfriend. Okay, what I learned very horribly in the last few years is that social evolution can go backwards, and I think that was what really horrified me. I always thought that, oh wow, you know, the kids are cool, and then the next set of kids are going to be cool, and you're seeing how any advancement we have made can just be taken from us like this. And I think that's what I find really challenging, to be honest.
Yeah.
Well, Janisha, that is something to really think about. Thank you for that. I'm not sure how to follow on from that, except to say, you know, Nanda, we're very impressed by what we've heard here today. We think you're doing an amazing job. The Splice community is now your community. So if I could ask you, well, one final question before we let you go, what can this community do for you?
Which community? Splice Better?
Correct.
Splice, all of these people
here who think the world of you.
How can we help?
I think being an ally, even though we are from different countries and different world, I think it's important to support each other in the time of needs. You know, for example, right now we are collaborating with an organization, a global organization outside to reach out to Myanmar audience, but the topic that they want to reach out is the topic that I care about. So I am being their ally in order for them to reach out to the Myanmar community to give the message that they want to give. So I think this is just a small example that I was trying to give. It's like try to be ally and try to support each other and give each other platform and share each other experiences. I think that can inspire so many of us to keep doing what we do. I think we really need it, especially as activists and journalists and feminists. It's so hard to live in this world where people are so comfortable by this traditional thinking and stereotypical thinking, and we are the one who are challenging it. It's like, you know, trying to push a wall, you know, and it's important that we are there for each other together. So be there for each other.
We are.
That's not specific,
thank you,
but
Nandar.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. That's really amazing. So for those of you who would like to share all of this knowledge, all of this will be put into a resources page that will be made available within 24 hours on splicebeta.com. So the video will be there, the text will be there around what Nanda's been saying. Please, you know, take that and share it with your communities as well, so that we can all learn from each other. So it's splicebeta.com/resources. Keep an eye on that. And with that, we would like to wrap this session. Thank you once again, Nanda. Thank you for everyone's great questions. We want to thank our sponsors who've made this happen. In particular, to Google, who's sponsoring every Friday for media careers. We think that this is a great conversation to spark in the community. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you on Monday.
Thank you, Rishad and
Thank you,
Alan. You have
Nanda.
been you've been so great. Thank you.